Howdy, howdy, folks. I think I actually got all this stuff to work right today. I sure hope I did. I've already seen something pop up on my phone saying that I was going live on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. So it's cold here in Texas. By anybody's standards, it's cold. Uh, well, I mean, people in Minnesota, but uh, yeah, I knew I had to get this done pretty quick. Because temperature's just supposed to keep dropping. And I knew, even though this is Saturday, I'm off on Sunday, and then I'm off again on Monday. Uh, yeah, it's going to be like in the teens at night and in the 20s or 30s during the day. And you ain't catching my tail end out here. I gave up smoking cigars when it's below freezing a long time ago. If I want to smoke a cigar when it's that cold, I'll go to my local cigar shop because we have several. Did actually have to adjust that a little bit, so everything was just perfect. All right, not going to really talk much today about the spirit cigar pairing. I'm going to tell you what I'm firing up here. This is a Plasencia. I almost said something different. Alma del Fuega. Plasencia makes some great cigars. Cigar guy Tom, giving you props, man. Just my buddy over at Plasencia. He's my local rep. Great guy too. He's prior military like I am. I served my first 2 years in the Navy. He was in the Navy, so I don't get to see him as much as I really would like to. But the DFW is a big place. It's like 80 or 90 miles across, and he lives on the other side. So, but we do stay in contact. Anyway, what I want to talk about today is that evil word inflation. It gets that word gets bandied about a lot. People know it's bad, but a lot of people just don't really know what in the heck it is, though. They're like, yeah, I know we don't want inflation, but what is it about inflation that's bad? I've also got my news on, so I can see if anything happens. I'm pairing today with Bardstown Origin Series Kentucky Straight Bourbon. It is 96 proof, 48% alcohol. Bardstown is in Kentucky. It's the Bardstown Bourbon Company. And they make some really good spirits. This Origin Series is really good. Even though it's 96 proof, it's really smooth. It's got some really nice notes of like vanilla and kind of pick up some maybe a little bit of like rich fruit. When I say rich fruit, I mean like kind of like candied fruit. It's not really sweet, but it does have a little bit of sweetness to it. Anyway, back to what we were originally here for. I got the script because it's a lot to try and keep in, especially in my mind. Milton Friedman said that, I'm paraphrasing, this may not be an exact quote, that number one, inflation is wholly caused by the government. Suppliers can't cause it. Buyers can't cause it. It is a product of government. And he also said that it is the single biggest tax burden on the citizens, because that's basically what it is it's a tax that's not a tax. Inflation is the sustained increase in general price level of goods and services in an economy over time that is affected by some external factors, but primarily government policies. While the external factors can be supply chain disruptions, we had, I think it may have been during COVID when the ships couldn't get unloaded. You had all these ships sitting offshore at the various ports, and I think I had to wait 8 months on a refrigerator. Those kinds of things can add to inflation. Even like natural disasters. But government is the single biggest contributor to inflation. Their actions, whether it's intentional or otherwise, influences the economy through fiscal and monetary and regulatory policies. Tom Holman. Yeah. They're saying Tuesday is going to be a big day for folks over at ICE. One of the most direct ways that government contributes to inflation is through its monetary policy. Central banks, operating under the guidance of government policies, control the money supply in the economy. When the government prints excessive amounts of money, bills, paper, or pursues expansionary monetary policies, it increases the supply of money. But that doesn't, it's not like when we were on the gold standard, and for every single dollar, there was $1 worth of gold in Fort Knox. We now operate on the finite system of money. Basically, our money has value because the government says it does, and that's it. That's the only thing it's the only way our money has value. Yeah, this can lead to demand pull inflation, where too much money is chasing too few goods or services. During times of like an economic downturn or a crisis, the government may print money to finance stimulus packages. COVID. Remember all those checks? I said back then, I'm going to cash this check, but we're going to be paying for it later. And we have been. And this inadvertently fuels inflation. If the supply of goods and services can't keep up with the pace of the money. Another major driver is large-scale spending, just what we're coming out of, and one reason why everybody is so on the right side of the aisle, and even some of the center parts of the aisle are so hot on this new Department of Government Efficiency. It's particularly when they finance this money through borrowing or money creation. It can create, it can push demand beyond the economy's productivity capacity. The demand pull effect that leads to higher prices. For instance, deficit financing is something we know a whole lot about, right? We got a $35 trillion deficit. When governments borrow money to fund their expenditures, what we're doing right now, that can lead to inflationary pressure if it results in an increased aggregate demand without corresponding increases in supply. Another piece of this pie is subsidies, public sector wage increases, infrastructure projects. These are all examples of government initiatives that can boost demand. And while these policies may stimulate economic growth in the short term, they can also lead to inflation if it's not measured, if it's not balanced with a measure to increase productivity or to manage supply constraints. This is all making sense? It's enough to make your head spin. Now, taxation and regulation, that's something else that's going to be big coming up on Monday afternoon. Government imposed taxes and regulation, they also contribute to inflation, particularly in cost push inflation. When governments increase taxes on goods and services, business often pass these costs onto the consumers in the form of higher prices. Similarly, regulatory policies that raise production costs, such as environmental regulations, labor laws, tariffs, can lead to higher prices for goods and services. Tariffs on imported goods increase costs for businesses that may rely on these imports, which in turn can result in higher prices for consumers. I'll get back to that. I'll circle back to this in just a second. Policies may aim to protect domestic industries or address social goals, but they can inadvertently contribute to inflation. Now, I know President-elect Trump has talked about tariffs, and that seems to be one of his big agendas. But if you listen to him closely, he's not talking about broad, sweeping tariffs. He's talking about tariffs that are specific to products that can be manufactured and purchased within the country and not have to bring those products from overseas. If you impose tariffs on those products, you still are able to buy the same kind of product that's American made, but it also, those products are still available from China, but at a higher price. So it actually tries to stimulate in-country spending. I wouldn't know what the technical term for that would be, but and along with that, he's also talked about, for instance, the car manufacturers. Back during the great auto collapse back in, 2004, 2005, somewhere around in there, somewhere between 2000 and 2010. A lot of the manufacturers left Detroit and moved their operations to Mexico as far as their assembly plants and things of that nature. He wants to impose tariffs on those products to encourage those manufacturers to bring that production back into the U.S. That way, American workers are building these products as opposed to workers in Mexico or Canada or wherever it happens to be, South Korea. Now, the government can devalue their currency to make exports more competitive in the global market. But this devaluation makes imports more expensive, increasing the cost of goods and services that rely on the imported materials. This imported inflation can affect the broader economy, particularly in countries heavily reliant on imports for essential goods and services. Think of Canada. Most things in Canada have to be imported in, and that's why prices are so high there. I remember when I was in the Navy, we were up in Canada. You still had the old cigarette machines in bars and stuff, and a pack of cigarettes cost $7. This was 32 years ago. $7 32 years ago. You can go down here and buy a pack now if you wanted to, $6 or $7, but it's 32 years later. Back then, it was maybe, I don't know, $3 or $4. I'm not a cigarette smoker. But you kind of see if you are a country that can't manufacture on your own, you're relying on these imports, it can increase the inflation and make the goods cost more. Where am I at? I am at, hey, man, I'm doing good. I'm about halfway done. I'm going to keep it under 30 minutes. Now, political instability and mismanagement can also play a role in this. If you have poor governance, that can exacerbate inflation and cause it to keep getting worse. And it did. It kept getting worse. Prices kept going higher and higher. Price of eggs went from like, I don't know, $1.20 just for like the medium, the regular kind of generic medium eggs. And sometimes you catch them on sale for like 99 cents. All of a sudden you were paying $3 for those and $7 or $8 for the cage-free or organic or whatever. It's just mismanagement at the government level. When the governments lose control over the fiscal discipline, $36 trillion in debt, or the central banks face political pressure to finance the deficits. We can even get into hyperinflation. Historical examples would be like Zimbabwe in the late 2000s, Germany during the Weimar Republic. They demonstrate how unchecked money printing to finance government activities can lead to runaway inflation. I'll say again, government is the driver of inflation. There are other things that can factor into it, but government is the driver. Government policy, government regulation, the printing of money, all of that is the major causes of inflation. And then you have these other things in the broader economy that kind of help, or I don't even say help, but you know, they add to it. Hopefully, President Trump is going to be able to come in and get this stuff taken care of. I got to warm up my fingers. Hang on. I got a fire right here in front of me. I don't know if you see it or not. Well, should have just left that alone. Got me all messed up. I always try to, let y'all see what's happening here. But anyway, hopefully President Trump can get this all under control. I've been talking to people on X, which is my primary platform for the Political Patriot, about how people are wanting him to come in and basically just slash regulation right away. I mean, not regulation, but slash spending. I've even heard people say we need to cut 75% of the federal workforce, all these kinds of things. And I've talked about it, kind of over the last several weeks. But the real big thing is that when you do that, you're going to have rippling effects into the economy. Our government spends somewhere between $500 billion and $1 trillion a year on goods and services. Most of those goods and services are from American companies. Whether the stuff is made outside America, I'm just saying, whoever they're buying it from is here in America. And so if they're spending, I've read several times that the government spends, like, I don't know if I can remember right, it was somewhere around $500 million on like office supplies. I do know that I remember vividly reading that they spend about $3 billion a year on office furniture. So let's just take the office furniture as an example. I know maybe they won't be buying office furniture every year. I don't know, but we're just going to take this as an example. They're buying $3 billion a year in office furniture, and they cut 2/3 of their spending. They now cut down to only $1 billion a year in office furniture. Well, the people that were selling them that office furniture just lost 2/3 of their revenue. What effect is that going to have on the economy? On that, if it's just one company, they're going to lose most of their revenue, and they're going to have to lay a whole bunch of people off. And I know that there are some companies out there that the government is basically all of their revenue. That's a bad model. I'm not arguing that, they should broaden their horizons. But if that's what their model is, that's what their model is. And if they lose all of their revenue, those companies go under unless they can quickly find replacement revenue. Back during COVID, I was a state and local tax manager at a company, and when the lockdowns hit, they lost 98% of their revenue. They went from $100 million a month to $2 billion. I made it through the first round of layoffs. I didn't make it through the second. Fortunately, COVID was something that was not going to last forever. But there's no reason for the government to slash spending if they're not going to keep it slashed. You can build it back up again. You're defeating your purpose. My idea has been, be more pragmatic about it. Get the low-hanging fruit first. Stop sending money overseas to people that hate us. Stop spending money or giving grants or whatever on testing the effects of cocaine on rats during sex. I don't care. I don't care. Doesn't affect us. I don't want to study the Japanese red-breasted swallow in Japan, but we spend money on this stuff. Dr. Fauci was sending money to China to do gain of research testing, and that kind of beat him in the ass. What I'm saying is, yes, we got to stop. We got to stop the deficit spending. We've got to learn to live on a balanced budget, just like folks do at home. You can't keep charging on the credit card, because at some point the creditor stops giving you credit. But we need to be sensible about it. We need to be measured about it, and we need to be forthright about it, which means we're not just going to kind of kick the can down the road and make a little cut here and a little cut there. No, we need to get rid of all that low-hanging fruit first, and then start working through the steps of cutting spending. The Department of Defense, they have 3 of their latest class of destroyer that they had originally ordered. I've talked about it before. I think they ordered like 24. They were supposed to cost $4 billion a year. I mean, $4 billion for each ship. After 3 of them, and after they had gone way over the time and they had gone way over their budget, it ended up costing $8 billion for each of those 3 ships. They canceled the rest of the orders and said this ship no longer meets our needs. We spent $25 billion on 3 ships that sat down in Pascagoula, Mississippi, and they're just sitting there. That's wasted money. Those are the kinds of things we need to be slashing or, trimming away at. Being pragmatic, but forthright about it. If we do the slash and burn and hope for the best, well, hope is never a strategy. You're going to end up effing something up, and it could end up costing a whole lot of people their jobs. It's like back during Obamacare, all the libbies were all free health care for all, and Obamacare is going to be great. And then you went back to them after Obamacare passed, and they were like, I knew some people would have to pay more, and I knew some people would lose their doctor, and I knew some people would lose their plan, but I didn't know that was going to be me. They thought it was all going to be somebody else. We can't do that. We have to take the approach that everything we do is going to affect every single American. And we need to cut, and we need to do it in such a way that we can have a nice easy landing as opposed to just nosing the plane down and hoping for the best. Because that won't work. Where am I at? Oh man, I'm 25 minutes. I'm getting good at this. I do hope that you all enjoyed my little foray into inflation. Maybe some of those of you that haven't, you hear about it on the news and you know that it's because prices are going up, but now you kind of understand where all that comes from. I hope I maybe kind of help some of that out. You know, I'm not an expert, but I've spent a lot of years in business and government, so I've been on both sides of the tracks. Little Dr. Pepper Zero there. But please feel free to leave me a comment. This is on Rumble and carried to YouTube and X. So wherever you are, leave me some comments. I don't care how good or bad they are. Doesn't matter to me. I just like it. I like having comments. So likes, shares, love those. I'm going to try to. I'm really starting to kind of get my grip on this new genre. I'm still trying to do the cigar and spirit thing, but it gets expensive. Because after nearly 5 years, I'm still having to buy the cigars and buy the whiskey. So, or whatever it is I'm pairing with. Not that I'm stopping. I actually have 3 5-packs of cigars. Well, 1 10-pack and 1 5-pack showing up today, and I have a couple of more that are already on order. And I got a box and 2 5-packs that it's a bidding site, and I'm watching them. And I'm going to wait until they get right down near the end and see what the price is like. And if I feel like it's worth it, I may jump on those too. So, you know, trying to fill up that 600 count humidor I've got. But anyway, we are, I think we're going to wrap it up here. I'm looking forward to Monday. I'm off, so I may try to hop on and do a little live thing, but it won't be outside because I think we're only going to be about 30 or 35 degrees. It's 40 something. Well, it's the upper 40s right now, and it's cold. My fingers are freezing. But hope you'd enjoy it. Hope you enjoyed it. Hit like, subscribe, share, notify, leave me comments, all that kind of stuff. You'll notice when I post the audio to Spotify, and I'll go over and share it. I put a link to our Redbubble store. Over at redbubble.com. It's under my my other podcast name, Sticks and Stones, STICKS-N-Stones, STONEZ. I got a little bit of everything over there, stuff that I've, created, t-shirts, and, it's all that kind of stuff. It's some of it's pretty good stuff. Some of it's kind of silly, but, it's entertaining. But until we get to be together again, remember, freedom reigns.